Hey everybody, it's First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Brad Penovich. Welcome to Thursday, April 30th. Can you believe tomorrow is May 1st? I cannot believe it's already here. And a cool, interesting weather fact is that we actually could see a little bit of snow in the North Carolina mountains late tonight and early tomorrow morning. Now, it's not the lowest elevations. We're talking 5,000 feet and up. So top of Beech Mountain, Sugar Mountain, Grandfather Mountain should be kind of a cool phenomenon. Just goes to show you, we can get snow in the higher elevations even in late April, early May. Now, if you woke up this morning, you probably noticed a lot of debris in your yard, a lot of wet weather. We had a ton of rain last night. We had 2 to 3 inches of rain across the Charlotte area and across the entire area. Some locations had 4 to 6 inches in the North Carolina mountains. So it was a real soaker last night. Numerous creeks and streams are running high. So please be careful today if you're out and about, especially along the greenways. The water is super high. There's a lot of debris that was washed up. Make sure you're very careful. That water is still moving very swiftly, and several creeks are still at flood stages. Tornadoes, wind, lightning, all those are very, very important. But wind is lower than flooding and rip currents. In fact, heat is even higher than all of them. So some of these unknown dangers of weather we often take for granted, and flooding is one of those. So today's topic is on flooding with meteorologist Chris Mulcahy.
Flooding is one of the most dangerous and deadly weather phenomenon on Earth. It can happen over days, weeks, months, and it can even happen in a matter of seconds. That's why we need to know about it. I'm meteorologist Chris Mulcahy, and today we're learning everything you need to know about flooding. Fact: flooding is the most common of all weather-related natural disasters. And here are the 4 ways that we typically have flooding. Number 1, we especially see this here in the Carolinas, that's going to be heavy rain. Heavy rain comes down all at once. Heavy rain rates quickly rise in that water level, especially along little streams and rivers. Number 2, storm surge. We typically see this during hurricane season. All that water is pushed up against the shore and can come in for miles sometimes. Number 3, not too common here in the Carolinas, that's going to be snow melt. That snow is going to melt down the mountains, and then water always flows from high to low, and especially in the Rockies there could be some big flooding concerns. And number 4, this is a rarity but can happen, a levee or a dam can break, rushing all that water downstream. So let's have some fun, a quick demonstration. So I made a little village. So what you're seeing right here is going to be our lake. So let's make that, or river or stream. Typically the water's just going to stay there. It's not going to be a major problem. But any of these houses that are right along the coast, right along the river, the stream, they're going to be most in jeopardy. And we're going to create a rain. So I poked some holes on the top of this milk jug, this one right here. Now we're going to create the rain. Watch what happens. This is going to be our flooding event. More and more rain happens. You can see that it's starting to get taller and taller. Now you can see some of the houses are getting underwater. Some of them even starting to move. The more rain that comes down, the worse the event. Picture this as torrential downpours. We can see this. Anyone along the water, tremendous amount of damage. More and more water can start to spread in. Even areas like this one. This one was fine, but then that water can exceed its banks. This right here would be more than major flooding. This would be catastrophic flooding. But there's one thing to point out. Notice these houses. That's the number 1 rule. You always go to higher ground. The higher you're up, the more safe that you're going to be during this flooding event. And this is also a tremendous amount of damage. Every year across the United States, flooding is one of the biggest causes of damage of any severe weather event, causing $5 billion in damage every single year. So the number 1 rule, go to higher ground during a flooding event, but another big one is turn around, don't drown. You probably heard us say this many a times, and the reason why is you should never drive through flooded roadways, because half of all deaths during a flooding event occur in vehicles, and that's also why you want to avoid bridges, because that quick moving water underneath can often knock out the support and knock the bridge over as well. It only takes 6 inches of water to knock you down. Now, 18 to 24 inches of fast-moving water, that's enough to move a vehicle and even transport it. And we're even talking as large as SUVs once it gets up to about that 2-foot mark or 24 inches. Now, we have a bunch of tools and different advisories and watches that let us know what's coming. For instance, yesterday, half of our area was under a medium flash flood threat outlook. This is also known as an excessive rainfall outlook. So that had us prepared that, hey, there could be a really good amount of rain that's coming down over 2 inches through parts of the foothills northwest of Charlotte up into the mountains. And then you could see for day 2, which is now today, all that threat pushes off towards the east. And sometimes we went onto the bullseye for a high and even an extreme level. So this is a good tool that we'll be showing you to show you what's coming. But also, if we're in that moderate level, a lot of times there'll be a flash flood watch or a flood watch, meaning that flooding could be imminent within the coming hours. Whenever you have a flash flood warning, that means that water is rapidly rising within a 6-hour period. So this was in place to prepare for that excessive rainfall. Also, flash flood warnings are broken down into what's called impact-based warnings. This is brand new as of this year. You're not going to get a cell phone notification anymore for a base warning. That's going to be most common. We typically will have these. That just means that flash flooding is possible. But if things are getting really bad, it's upgraded to what's called a considerable flash flood warning. This is used rarely. Hopefully you don't have a notification for this. That means that urgent action needs to be taken place to protect property and even protect your own life because water is rising around you. This could typically happen for areas that maybe are surrounded by streams or rain just coming down in sheets and moving slow and just not stopping. And the last one, and I hope for you that you never get one of these, this is a catastrophic flash flood warning. These are extremely rare, also known as a flash flood emergency. This means that the flood levels are pretty much rising to historic levels that you might have seen or never been seen before. So focusing in on that flash flood emergency, extremely rare as we mentioned. That is a severe threat to human life, and these don't happen that often. However, they did happen back in 2018 during Hurricane Florence in Chesterfield County, South Carolina, and then also in Union County, North Carolina. At that point, there was a travel ban put in place. You're not supposed to go anywhere because things are that dangerous. Lastly, storm surge. We mentioned this as one of the 4 reasons that we could have flooding. Well, storm surge will happen as a tropical system or a strong low is moving towards the coast. That lifts up all that ocean water and drives it inward. So anyone that lives along the coast typically are evacuated during these events because of this. Once it gets up to 3 feet, we already mentioned it's only 18 to 24 inches or up to 2 feet to move a vehicle. Vehicles are floating at this point. Debris is splashing and sloshing all over the place. Once you get up to 6 feet, picture that above your door getting into your house, and as much as 9 feet, well, that's excessive, and that's going up to the roof.
But it could be much worse than this. One of the greatest storm surges of all time was generated by Hurricane Katrina back in 2005. Maximum storm surge estimates were as much as 28 feet across Mississippi. New Orleans was pelted especially hard because they're below sea level. This caused over $100 billion in damage and killed roughly 1,800 people. The worst flood in U.S. history happened back in 1889 in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. A dam broke and this killed 2,200 people. This is considered one of the deadliest natural disasters experienced in the United States of all time. Meanwhile, here in the Carolinas, it was just a couple years ago during Hurricane Florence, as we mentioned, that historic flooding happened. 28 flood records were broken across the state, and this is one of the worst to ever impact North Carolina. And this is only shortly after North Carolina was impacted by Hurricane Matthew that had similar record-breaking flooding.
So flooding can happen anywhere, anytime. So you always need to be prepared. So when that water goes up, so should you. I'm meteorologist Chris Mulcahy. Look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks, Chris. Nice little freeze frame at the end there. Yeah, so a lot of flooding in the last 24 hours. Please be careful today if you're out and about because there is a lot of debris and still a lot of high water. It'll take a couple days for some of the bigger creeks and streams to subside. Today, remember, tomorrow we'll be right back here at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And if you miss any of our previous episodes, you can go to WCNC.com. But really the best place to go is go to YouTube.